Alright, this is Astro for the PS5, and I just gotta say, this game is freaking amazing. It's just classic, old school, quick, pick up and play, platforming fun. It's basically Sony's version of Kirby, maybe mixed with, I get a lot of Kirby and the Lost, I always want to say Lost, Forgotten, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and like Super Mario Odyssey. Basically, the most current, 3D platforming Kirby game, and the, I guess, most current 3D platforming Mario game, which, with the hat and the different power-ups you get, kind of has a Kirby feel to it. And this game very much has a Kirby feel to it. It's one-hit kills, but you immediately start at the nearest checkpoint, and the checkpoints are super plentiful. The levels aren't very long. Nothing overstays its welcome. Like I said, this game is quick. It's fast-paced. It's good for pick up and play, and the reason is the load times are quick. You start the game, you're in the game really quickly. If you die, again, the checkpoint was probably fairly recent. Boom, almost immediately you're back at that checkpoint, and you only lost maybe 30 seconds worth of gameplay. The levels aren't that long. Average level is maybe 5 or 6 minutes long. Mini bosses are extremely quick to be dealt with. Sometimes just one hit, or figuring out how to hit them. It throws something at you, you throw it back, boom, it explodes, mini boss done. If you want to call that a mini boss, kind of spread out throughout some of the levels. The level design reminds me of Kirby. You can fly around to different worlds, like a Kirby game, or actually like a Mario game. Mario 64, I guess, started it with its 3D platforming introduction, where you had to collect the stars. There's always something to collect in these kind of games, right? So in this game, every level has 3 puzzle pieces. You collect the puzzle pieces, but then you're also collecting your little lost bots. So I think there's like 200 in total, and every level will have, I think, 9 or 10 of these little bots, and they'll be hidden somewhere around the level. Of course, you can complete the level without finding all of the bots, but to progress past certain parts in the overworld, you need so many bots. So there might be a spot where you can't get past to fight the end boss of that world until you have 30 bots, for example. So kind of like the stars in Super Mario 64, or other Mario games. I can't remember in Odyssey what you were collecting, or even in the 2D Mario games, even going back to the Wii, where you couldn't progress into a certain level or a certain castle until you had enough, whatever they were, stars or hearts or flowers or whatever. So there's that collecting aspect where you'll beat a level and you'll go, oh, I missed a couple of bots, I gotta go back and get them. So it has the collection factor, but it's not overdone. It has quick, simple levels you can easily get into. Again, one hit kills you, but it's not a big deal. You don't lose a lot of progression. The bosses, even the main bosses, are, once you figure out their pattern and like how you attack them, because they're all, so far the bosses I've seen, again, very Kirby-like, large bosses, a simple pattern, a simple almost gimmick, or maybe the power-up you got in that level is used to attack that boss. But the boss fight might only take, again, a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. The game just moves fast. It loads up fast. It gets you in and gets you in and going without any parts of the game overstaying their welcome. So whether that's maybe you get a certain power up in that level and it's quote unquote the gimmick for that level, but they don't overdo it. Only a few parts of that level maybe will need it. every level so far that I've played, and I'm only halfway through the second world, so, you know, I've done maybe like a dozen levels, but so far every level has a new power-up. And again, like a Kirby game, a lot of these power-ups, they're kind of crazy and overpowered, but they're really fun. And the way you interact with them, not just in the game, but with the controller, of course. Like, they use the L and R triggers with a lot of that adaptive kind of force feedback thing where, you know, it really feels like you're squeezing or grabbing something. But again, they don't overstay or overdo like that gimmick for that level. So as you can see here, this level is clearly inspired by Ape Escape, and you know, this game, like the demo, pays a lot of tribute to Sony's history. So again, I'm not super far in the game yet, but I've already seen in some of the bots that I've collected, you know, references to Parappa the Rappa, Spyro the Dragon, and even Crash Bandicoot. Although Sony obviously doesn't own the rights to Crash Bandicoot anymore. I guess Activision owned Crash Bandicoot, and then Microsoft bought Activision, I think. Which is weird to me that, you know, Sony doesn't own Crash Bandicoot. I wish they, you know, really just could have bought that IP. But yeah, so Crash Bandicoot makes an appearance in this game, but they can't call him Crash Bandicoot, so they call him like a Naughty Dog or something like that. But clearly it looks just like Crash Bandicoot. So again, I'm not super far in the game, and I've already seen like a fair bit of these nods to like Sony's history and Sony's characters and stuff. So obviously that's going to be a big part of the game. If you played the demo, you'll recall that it played like homage to Sony's history in general, and especially like their hardware history. You're collecting all the different variations of the PlayStation systems over the years, and even the accessories like the controllers and the VMU. Not the VM, that's the Dreamcast, the Pocket Station thing. You're collecting all these different pieces of Sony's hardware, you know, wanting you to have the nostalgic feelings collecting all this stuff that's related to Sony's history. So assuming they're doing the same thing here, just with the characters rather than the hardware. That said, this game doesn't play exactly like the demo. You know, the demo, again, leaned very heavily into the gimmicks because it was trying to show you how to use the controller and the new features with the controller. You know, the motion sensing stuff with the gyro stuff in the controllers, pretty advanced, and, you know, obviously the force feedback again, and those L and R triggers. And so they leaned really heavily into the gimmicks and the levels. There weren't a lot of levels. And obviously in this game, this is a full-blown game. There's a lot more levels. And so far, they've all been great. Like, the level design is just top-notch. It's up there with Super Mario Odyssey. I am having just as much fun with this as I did with Super Mario Odyssey, so I'm loving it. I'm going to leave it off here. This is the full level. This is the current level I've played, or the most recent level I played. I just started playing the game, but I already wanted to make the video because it's just so much fun, and I wanted to talk about it and show it off as soon as possible, to be honest. And in this level, you can turn into a small mouse, as you've seen, to get through smaller areas, and that's the gimmick in this level. This is the first level that I've seen this power up. Like I said, every level so far has been a different power-up. And this one, maybe, if I was going to say they don't overstay their, like, the gimmick for that level, maybe this one does, you know. It really does rely on being small most of the time. But, again, it was fun. It's just everything about this game is just classic, fun, mascot-based platforming. Bright and colorful. Now, I gotta mention, I'm recording this with the built-in recording in the PlayStation 5. I don't remember off the top of my head if that's just 1080p 30 or is it 1080p 60. I don't remember, but I will say, because the game was running in HDR, It's really hard to record HDR and transfer that like format and display it on something else. So in the video editing, while I was editing this video, I had to crank up the saturation, and I bumped up the contrast just a little bit, because otherwise it looks really washed out. If I just pull the video straight into the video editor, it looks like this. It's really washed out. The contrast is really low. So again, I had to bump up the contrast and the saturation. However, it probably doesn't look exactly how it looked while you saw it on my TV, while it was in HDR, and I could fiddle with highlights and saturation and cutoff points and all kinds of stuff, and probably never get it to look exactly the way it looked. So just keep that in mind. The game is obviously, as you would expect, really colorful, really vibrant, good contrast, nice and bright, especially with HDR. The sky and everything looks really bright. The colors are really vibrant. It's an amazing looking game. Goes without saying, this is a really good looking game, but this video probably doesn't do it justice, just because, again, I had to tweak some things, and I'm sure some stuff was lost in translation. I'm pretty sure we're recording at 10. Give me a second, I'm gonna look this up. Now I gotta know. In the middle of doing the voiceover. Now I gotta know. Let's check this out. Okay, yeah, so the video clips are 1080p 60, but they're only 64 kilobytes per second, which is a fairly low bit rate on my PC when I record. I guess that's at 1440p, but I bumped that up to 80 kilobytes per second, and I'm sure, technically that's still low, right? But I wanted to point out the game does run, it can run at a native 4K, it can hit 4K. It targets like a range between 1440p and 4K. So it's got pretty sharp, clean visuals. I don't notice a lot of like anti-aliasing issues. I certainly don't notice any sort of like temporal upscaling, like FSR, when you sometimes have like the ghosting issues. I don't notice anything like that. It is a clean image, trying to hit a native 4K, but again, it will range between 1440p and 4K. Again, I'm just saying, it's a good looking game. This video can't do it justice. It's not the full resolution. It's not the full, there's compression, the bit rate's low, and, we were recording in HDR, and I'm assuming, we were playing the game in HDR, and I'm assuming it only recorded it in SDR, and there's like something lost in translation there. Again, these videos come out of the PS5 looking extremely faded. Just washed out and faded, and so I had to compensate for that in video editing. So again, not a perfect representation, but it's a very good looking game. It's fun, it's fast, it's smooth, it looks good. It's just classic, good old-fashioned 3D platformer through and through. If you like 3D Mario games, if you like 3D Kirby games, you're gonna like this game. And if you have a PS5, go and buy this game right now. It is freaking awesome. That is it. See you later.